Hi, this is Dan Wickwire. In this session, I'll be dealing with question number 26 in my book, 200 Questions About the Bible and the Quran. The question is this: is God a distant, transcendental God who rarely ever shows his great power or leaves his fingerprints on human history? Well, the Bible would say no, but the Quran would say yes. Look at Exodus 13:21. This is from the Tevrat. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, to go by day and night. God manifested himself in a miraculous way to the children of Israel as they were out in the desert. Look at Exodus 16:9-10. And Moses spoke unto all the children of Israel, Come near before the Lord, for he has heard your complaints. And behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in a cloud. All of Israel saw the glory of the Lord descend on the place where they were at. Again, in Exodus 24:16-17, and the glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai. For 6 days the cloud covered it, and on the 7th day the Lord called to Moses from within the cloud. At the sight of the glory of the Lord, it was like a consuming fire on the mountaintop in the eyes of the Israelites. Obvious manifestations of God's power and of his glory in front of the entire nation of Israel. 1 Samuel 12:16. Now stand and see this great thing which the Lord will do before your eyes. Were miracles happening, and the book of Samuel describes these things. Numbers 14:10. But the whole congregation threatened to stone Joshua and Caleb. Then the glory of the Lord appeared to all the Israelites at the tent of meeting. God stepped in and intervened. Numbers 16:19. When Korah had gathered his whole assembly against them at the entrance of the tent of meeting, the glory of the Lord appeared to the whole congregation. Everybody saw it. Numbers 20, verse 6. Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting. They fell face down, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. Another appearance of the glory of the Lord. 1 Kings 8:10-11. And when the priests came out of the holy place, the cloud filled the house of the Lord, so that the priest could not stand there to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord. 2 Chronicles 5:13-14. The trumpeters and singers joined together to praise and thank the Lord with one voice. They lifted up their voices, accompanied by trumpets, cymbals, musical instruments, and praise to the Lord. For he is good, his loving devotion endures forever. And the temple, the house of the Lord, was filled with a cloud, so that the priest could not stand there to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled the house of God. God manifested his glory in the midst of the entire congregation. In Ezekiel 1:28, the appearance of the brilliant light all around them was like that of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell down, face down, and heard a voice speaking. God is manifesting himself throughout the Old Testament. Now look at the New Testament in the Injil. Matthew 17:5. While he yet spoke, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. The beloved Son is talking about Jesus, and God the Father, Yahweh, is saying this. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. They saw a bright cloud overshadow them, and the voice coming out of the cloud. God is manifesting himself in no uncertain way. And again, in John 12:28-30, Father, Jesus is saying this, Father, glorify thy name. Then came there a voice from heaven saying, I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. Jesus answered and said, This voice came not because of me, but for your sakes. How many times has God manifested himself both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament? But now let's look at the Quran. What does the Quran say about these kinds of supernatural manifestations? His showing his power or leaving his fingerprints on human history? They say, Why has no sign been sent down upon him from his Lord? Say, Allah is certainly able to send down a sign, but most of them know not. We have neglected nothing in the book of our decrees. Well, there are no miracles like this in the Quran. God's able to do it. Yes, the Quran agrees with that. But they say, who's the they there? It's the Jews. The Jews are challenging the Muslims and saying, why has no sign, why has no miracle happened to come down from his Lord? And the Muslim answers say, well, Allah is certainly able to send down a sign, but most of them do not. And then it says, we've neglected nothing in the book of our decrees. Well, it's a cop-out. They have no answer for this because the book is empty. There was no miraculous signs that Muhammad did. There was no God signs that God did in the midst of the Muslims during the time of Muhammad. Nothing similar to what happened in the Bible. And then Taha 20, 133. And they say, this again is the Jews complaining about Muhammad. Why does he, Muhammad, give us no sign from his Lord? Has not a clear sign come to them of all that was in the former books of Revelation? It's appealing to the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Tevrat, Zabur, and Injil. Yeah, there were many signs that God did back then. But they, the Jews, are saying, well, if he's done it for us in the Old Testament and even in the New Testament, why has he, Muhammad, given us no sign from his Lord? Empty. The answer is empty. So the question remains, is God a distant, transcendental God who rarely ever shows his great power or leaves his fingerprints on human history? No in the Bible. No in the Bible, but yes in the Quran. Yes, there are no fingerprints that God has left. When I was at the theological faculty, one of the doctoral students there asked me, he said, Dan, you know everything about Islam. Why aren't you a Muslim? And I said, I don't see any fingerprints of God in the Quran. I don't see any miraculous evidences of his great power or his fingerprints that he's left on human history. That was it. So the question is God a distant, transcendental God who rarely ever shows his great power or leaves his fingerprints on history? The Bible says no, but the Quran says yes.